Joining us now to discuss what happened in Colorado and whether there is any better way to protect Americans from a twisted mind are Senator Dianne Feinstein, a longtime advocate of stricter gun control, and Senator Ron Johnson, a strong supporter of gun rights. Senators, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Chris.
Morning, Chris.
Senator, with the big picture. Another case of someone slaughtering innocent people on a college campus, in a restaurant, now in a movie theater. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are this, pure and simple. Weapons of war don't belong on the streets. This is a powerful weapon. He had a 100-round drum. This is a man who planned it, who went in, and his purpose was to kill as many people as he could in a sold-out theater. I think, we've got to sit down and really come to grips with what is sold to the average citizen in America. I have no problem with people being licensed, buying a firearm. But these are weapons that you're only going to use them to kill people in close combat. That's the purpose of that weapon. You can put a Hellfire switch on it. You can fire semi-automatic very rapidly. This drum was huge. He had 100 bullets in it, and he went out to kill a lot of people. I think that these weapons ought to be stopped. I think the sale and transfer, that's what my bill did for 10 years since my bill expired. What happened was there have been the assault weapons ban. There have been 452 instances. 650 people have been shot. 300 have died of those 650. And it's unnecessary.
Let me bring in Senator Johnson. The Supreme Court has spoken. The Constitution means when it says that Americans have a right to bear arms. But let's look at this case. Does the suspect, James Holmes, does he have a constitutional right to buy an AR-15 assault rifle along with a magazine that holds 100 rounds that makes it so easy to commit this kind of slaughter?
Well, first of all, Chris, this is a horrible tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers go out to all the victims and the community of Aurora. The fact of the matter is, though, is he's a sick, a demented, evil individual. And unfortunately, I don't think society can keep sick, demented individuals from obtaining any type of weapon to kill people. I mean, somebody who wants to purposely harm another individual is going to find a method of doing it. And, case in point, if he wanted to kill people in that theater, what was the first thing he did? He walked in those doors and he threw some incendiary devices. He could have made some other kind of explosive. This isn't an issue about guns. This is just really an issue about sick, demented individuals, and it's a tragedy. And I don't think there's a solution here in Washington to solve this problem.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, is there anything that we as a society can do to protect ourselves from these kind of twisted minds?
Unfortunately, I don't believe so. I mean, I wish there was. I wish I could wave a magic wand and make this tragedy go away. I wish I could wave a magic wand and pass a law to prevent something like this in the future. But the fact of the matter is, I really don't think there is, other than look to our families, look to our communities, and start taking a look at our education system. We've got to reinstill values in what we're teaching our children.
Senator Feinstein, you were a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors back in 1978 when one of your former colleagues, and we have some of the horrific film here, one of your former colleagues shot and killed the mayor, and as well as fellow supervisor Harvey Milk, and you have been a strong supporter of gun control ever since. But most of your fellow Democrats have deserted you on this issue over the last 20 years. How come?
Well, it's a very hard issue because the gun organizations go out to defeat people in states where they can, and they pour a lot of money in, and some people lost office after they voted for the legislation before. But, I have respect for Senator Johnson. But let me say this. I believe people use these weapons because they can get them. I believe that a revolver, a rifle, a shotgun isn't going to do the damage. It's the big clips. It's 100 rounds. You cannot get to him to dislodge the gun because he can fire so rapidly and has so many bullets. Why do you need this? You don't need it for hunting. Most states have limits on the number of bullets you can have on a clip. You don't need it for self-defense. Why do you need it? Why do we make it available?
Well, it's a very
Why
wait,
can
wait,
we go
it's
into
a, it's a very good
show
question.
and
Let
buy any of these?
Let me let
caliber?
Senator Johnson answer it. Why do you need those?
First of all, criminals will always be able to get
All right, but
whatever they
question.
want. I mean, for example, I mean, the left always uses the term assault rifles, and they're really talking about semi-automatic weapons that really are used in hunting. I mean, that's what happens in Wisconsin. These are, you know, rifles that people use in hunting. And just the fact of the matter is that this really is not an issue of guns. Again, we're talking about sick people doing things that you simply can't prevent. It's really an issue of freedom. And I swore an oath to defend the Constitution. And part of that Constitution is the Second Amendment, which guarantees the right to bear arms. And these types of laws infringe upon that right. And I don't agree with it.
And let me ask you, I mean, we're not talking about handguns. Does something that would limit magazines that can carry 100 rounds, would that infringe on the constitutional right?
I believe so. You know, people will talk about unusually lethal weapons. I mean, that could be potentially a discussion you can have. But the fact of the matter is there are magazines, 30-round magazines that are just common all over the place. You simply can't keep these weapons out of the hands of sick, demented individuals that want to do harm. And when you try and do it, you restrict our freedoms.
Let me flip it around on you, because I've heard more and more people, surprising number of people to me in the last couple of days, say the problem isn't too many guns, it's too few. And that if somebody in that theater had been armed, they could have stopped the shooting, let me stop the carnage, taken down the shooter, and defended themselves. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's certainly one of the rationales behind concealed carry, where criminals actually have to be a little concerned before they commit a criminal act that maybe somebody could stop them. And I think that is the truth. That if somebody, a responsible individual, had been carrying a weapon, maybe they could have, you know, prevented some of those deaths, some of those injuries. I think that's just the truth.
And maybe you could have had a firefight and killed many more people. These are people in a theater.
But
this
you
is
had a massacre.
Man,
you had a massacre as it was with them undefended.
That's
Senator.
right. That's right, because he had such a big clip. Now,
but what if somebody had had a gun and been able to stop him?
I would be very surprised if hunters in your state hunted with 100-round ammunition feeding devices. In the bill I did, we exempted 375 rifles and shotguns by name, so that no weapon used for hunting was affected at all. It's just the military-style assault weapon.
But the result of that ban, it didn't solve any problems. I mean, we've had bans here in Washington, D.C., we've had bans in Chicago, and you can argue statistics. But, you know, I take a look at the statistics, and I say it has no measurable effect. You could actually argue that it's made matters worse.
And
sometimes murder rates are up. But I don't want to get into statistics. We are talking about basic freedoms in the Constitution, Second Amendment, and I'm a strong defender and believer in that Constitution.
I want to talk about the politics of this, get back to it with you, Senator Feinstein. The Brady gun control campaign, named after James Brady, Reagan's press secretary, who was shot during the assassination attempt in 1981, has given President Obama an F for his failure to lead on this issue. And on Friday, the day of the shooting, Jake Carney, the White House press secretary, came out and said he is going to offer no new policy as a result of this shooting. Are you disappointed in the president?
Well, I would hope that there would be a sane national conversation on guns. President
led on this?
President Bush said he supported the continuation of the assault weapons legislation. President Obama, Mr. Romney, I think they should give it a lot of consideration. I think this is a bad time to brace a new subject, but there has been no action. And there has been no action because there's been no outrage out there. People haven't rallied forward. When I did the legislation, I had Lloyd Benson, Secretary of the Treasury, standing with me, chiefs of police, police officers, sheriffs, because 1 out of 5 police officers is killed with an assault weapon. There was a tremendous amount of support, and even then, it was very tough. So it's a lot tougher now because the gun organizations have become so strong.
I'm going to give you the final word, Senator Johnson. Are these massacres, horrible as they are, and people here in Washington looking for solutions, are they just a fact of life and death in America?
Well, I hate to say it, but they probably are. And listen, I understand Senator Feinstein has seen gun violence up close and personal. I don't doubt her sincerity for a moment. But I really would hate to see a tragedy like this used to promote a political agenda to reduce Americans' freedom. Enough of our freedoms have already been taken away. We don't want to lose any more. We're
going to leave it there. Senator Feinstein, Senator Johnson, I want to thank you both very much for coming in today to discuss, unfortunately, another one of these terrible massacres. Thank you both.